Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Video Game Collectors on Call. As always, I'm Dr. Gamer Retro. Today we have a special guest joining us. We have Chris from Moonshine Gaming. Chris, how you doing?
Good. Just finished up a day at the shop and excited to talk about video games with you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a backstory for everyone. People might not know this, but I like to travel a lot. I go to a bunch of different places, and whenever I go to those places, I visit as many video game stores as I can. And I was recently in Toronto.
Sorry, hold on. How did you pronounce it?
Toronto.
Toronto. Okay, so that's how we can tell if you're a tourist, is by pronouncing the second T. So it's actually... Go.
Silent? It's a silent T?
So Toronto. At least that's what we say it if we're from Toronto.
Okay, that's all right. That's crazy. But anyway.
So if you say Toronto, everyone's going to know you're not from Toronto.
Chris, let me tell you something. The rest of this podcast, I'm going to say Toronto, and you're going to like it, okay? So
I love it.
So anyway, I was in Toronto. I probably went to about 10 game stores. I went to a lot, and I went to Chris's shop. Moonshine Gaming is the name of the store. It was probably one of my last stops, and he just had an amazing collection of not just video games, but video game history, I guess you could say. He was able to, I'm very new to collecting, and he able to provide me some information that I didn't know about. So once again, thanks for coming and imparting your knowledge upon us, Chris. We'll have some questions about your store, collecting, different things. So first question that I always ask everyone is, how'd you get your name? So Moonshine Gaming, where did that come from?
So I used to be a full-time DJ. I was a country DJ for 10 years, and my stage name was DJ Moonshine.
Okay. So I, as a surgeon myself, we play music in the OR, and I have a rule, and you might not like my rule, but I play ABC, anything but country. So I'm not the best country fan at all, but we'll let it slide. That's fine.
I started in top 40 in hip hop.
Okay.
Is what I started. And then I kind of fell into country. I did a country night at one of my old residencies, and then there was a country bar opening downtown Toronto.
Okay. Toronto, for those of you listening at home.
And they scooped me up and offered me full-time work. So I kind of just fell into the full-time country, to be honest. I do really enjoy hip-hop and top 40 a little bit more, but hey, whatever pays the bills, right?
Do you still do that, the DJing, or no?
No, all the bars shut down with COVID, and that was kind of the push that pushed me into doing this online full-time to start, was when all the bars shut down.
Okay. So like I mentioned, your store has tons of games on display and for sale. Now, are these all the games you personally own, or do you have some at home where you're like, I'm not selling that?
Yeah, there's some stuff that I kept in my personal collection. I kept all my Super Nintendo stuff. I kept all my N64, and then I cherry-picked everything else. Just stuff that was sentimental to me, or just games that I really liked.
But you, just so viewers are aware, you still sell some N64 things, and those are items that you've picked up that, aren't your personal collection, correct?
Yeah, so I collected a full North American set, cartridge only, for N64. Me and my girlfriend shared a lot of good memories, hunting down the games, and she actually wouldn't let me sell it because it's really hard for N64 stuff it doesn't come into the store very often. It's one of the hardest things for me to keep a good stock of. So I was debating bringing my whole N64 collection in, and my girlfriend was like, nope. We went to so many different stores, went to so many different game shows, spent so much money, and just a lot of good memories, collecting that set with her. So she was like, nope, you can't sell it.
So what you're telling me is there's a guy selling the complete N64 collection on eBay right now for $9,500, and that's not you?
No.
Okay. Excellent. So speaking of that, how do you get the things that you sell in your store? Because it seems like every day I see you posting on Instagram, hey, I got this in. Are these people coming into your store, like selling these things, or?
Yeah, so a lot of our stuff is from walk-ins, but then equally as much stuff is people reach out to us on social media. Like we have a pretty good social media following. We have 8,000 on YouTube, 50,000 on Instagram, 100,000 on TikTok, 10,000 on Facebook. So people reach out to us being like, hey, this is like everything we have. We do an online quote first, and then if it's something that they want to sell, they'll either come into the store directly or they can mail it to us.
These are mostly people in Toronto, I take it?
Some people from Toronto, but the mail-in stuff is anywhere in North America.
I also see you, it sounds like you go and pick stuff up as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find that? Is that online that you see people, or?
That will be, sometimes it would be people reaching out to, again, through social media, and they don't have a vehicle to come and drop it off. So I make it, if it's enough stuff, and then I'll, I'll drive as far as a couple hours to go pick it up. Or Facebook Marketplace sometimes, Kijiji, you can still find stuff on there. And we also post wanted ads across a bunch of different platforms.
What was the second thing you said after Facebook? Kijiji?
Kijiji, sorry. That's like a...
Is that a Canada thing?
Maybe it is. I didn't even realize it was.
If you're watching and you're from the United States and you know what that is, type it in the comments because I don't know what it is.
It's basically like a Facebook Marketplace, but its own website.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. What started all this? Like, take me back to the beginning. When did you maybe start collecting, and then when did you say, "Man, I got too much stuff here to have in my house. I need to sell it." Like, where did that happen?
So the collecting bug started. Me and my mom used to go to yard sales and thrift stores a lot when I was younger, and I bought an NES console and like 20 games. And then I looked a couple of them up on eBay. I was like, damn, they're like, some of these have some value. I would have been pretty young at that time, probably like early days of the internet, 11 or 12 years old, I probably was. But I was like, oh, that's so cool. You know, like I picked this stuff up for a set amount of money and it's worth this much amount of money. And then, yeah, it was kind of snowballed from there. And anything I didn't own, if I could buy it for a reasonable price, I would keep it. And then in my head, I was like, okay, one day I'm going to open a game store. So if I amass this like huge collection, when I open my game store, I'll be able to put all of that out into the store as inventory and have really good stock for whenever that happens.
So you always had the goal of opening a game store. That was like maybe since you were a kid or
it was
what?
More of like a pipe dream at first. It didn't really come into reality until I had set the business up in a way that I was comfortable, you know, going into a storefront and with the overhead and this and that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you keep saying we or us, but aren't you the only employee of Moonshine Gaming? Is it just you?
No, I have a part-time guy.
You do? Okay, because I watched a video. I watched a video on your Instagram page, and it was all the employees, and it was like, this is the game tester, and it showed you, and this is the stock boy, and it's you. So I just assumed that it was just yourself.
That was more of a... I mean, at that point, I didn't have my part-time employee, so it pretty much was just me. Now I have one part-time employee. I have a repair guy on staff. I have... my girlfriend helps out, but I would consider her like part owner.
Okay, gotcha. And you've been at that location, I think you just celebrated your 1-year anniversary, is that right?
That's right. Last week, 2 weekends ago.
Were you somewhere else before, or you started in this location?
This was our first brick and mortar store, but we've been online. I've been selling online for 13 years.
Okay. Do you think you're going to need a bigger store, Chris?
I want to open a second one.
Second location?
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be great.
For sure.
That'd be great.
Aiming for like end of next year, hopefully.
Okay.
End of this year end of next year as in end of 2025.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And any plans to move outside of Toronto with that or just stay?
Yeah, there's 2 spots we're looking at right now. One is North Toronto. It's called Vaughan. It's basically is Toronto, but it's really north side of Toronto. And then the other location we're looking at is Burlington, which is a couple cities west of Toronto.
Okay. And you also sell things other than games, I remember seeing when I was there, right? So was that the plan all along? Was it supposed to just be games, or you kind of got into that as the selling went on?
I wanted it to be video game, like most of it video games and video game themed items. But I think I always wanted kind of a little mix of a little bit of everything. Like the books and stuff are video game themed books. The figures are video game themed figures, right? So it's all video game themed. It all falls under that video game umbrella, I guess you could say. But yeah, having a mix of different things is nice. It's also good for people who are like Christmas shopping for a gamer, right? Because they don't always have the list of games that they want or like know what they have. So it's easy for them to pick up a figure of something that they like, right? So.
Do you have an idea of how many games you have in your store right now? A number?
I actually just did my year-end inventory, and I think it's including our overstock 14,000.
And that's just games, right? That's not like other items and stuff. That's strictly video games.
That would be games, and then each console would count as like one item. Figures, Funkos, books, and amiibos.
Okay.
It basically is like 14,000 items, I guess. And I would say that 80 to 85% of that would be games, so probably like 12,000 games.
Okay. That's definitely a lot of games. And so when people come in, is there anything people bring in sometimes? You're like, nah, I'm not going to buy that. Like that's not going to sell, or I'm not interested. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. A lot like sports
Like
games, obviously, like
sports games? Yeah.
shovelware. I really, as much as like Rock Band stuff is pretty good and Guitar Hero stuff is pretty good, there's nothing I dislike more than seeing someone coming in with a Rock Band set because I have to set that all up and test it, and it takes an
Yeah.
hour, over an hour, like an hour and a half. And then I
Right.
can't quote it out until I know it works, right? So typically I won't even take in Rock Band stuff like drums, the pianos, Guitar Hero guitars. I can test quickly, so I'll take those in, and they sell pretty decently. But Guitar Hero stuff, it takes up so much space, it takes so long to test, and then it normally doesn't sell that fast.
But it must be fun to test some of these things, right? Maybe a game comes in you've never heard of, and you put in, you're like, wow, this game's actually pretty cool. Like, has that ever happened?
That happens every time I test guitars, honestly.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
Guitar Hero, and I play guitar
Yeah.
too, so it's like
Gotcha.
sometimes if I haven't played Guitar Hero in a while and I plug in a guitar, that's going to be like a 30-minute testing session.
Okay. What's the most expensive item in your shop right now
The most expensive thing is the complete...
that you're willing to sell? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sell anything in here
Okay.
except for the McDonald's kiosk. That's probably the only thing in here I wouldn't sell.
That you will not sell. Okay.
Yeah, but the most expensive game would be Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut, complete in box copy for NC.
Okay. Speaking of, something like that, a topic that comes up a lot among people who collect video games is game grading, and it's very controversial.
Yep.
What do you think about grading games?
I get it. I would
Okay.
never get... I personally would never get anything graded. I only have one graded thing in here.
What is that?
It's a first print Zelda Twilight... Or Zelda... Hold on. Twilight Princess for Wii. A sealed one.
Did you grade it or did you buy it that way?
No, it was a mail-in trade, and it was
Okay.
just included in the mail-in trade, and I wasn't going to say just like leave it out, so
Oh,
I took it in, whatever. I didn't really want it, but I took it.
Is there anything that so actually back to that question, grading
Yeah,
games.
I didn't really answer.
Yeah, I guess not. Go more into that. Yeah. Deflected the question there.
I'm kind of on the side of like I think games should be played. I get grading certain things, like I get grading sports cards. That I understand because you're not like you only really have a sports card to look at it. You're not actually playing with it or like playing a game with
So what about then like Pokemon cards or Magic the other trading card games? Those are cards too.
Yeah, that's a gray area.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm asking the tough questions tonight, Chris.
I personally wouldn't get anything graded, but I get the like preservation aspect of it. But I feel like most people who are doing the grading aren't in it for the preservation; it's for the money. So it's kind of like weird.
I've always had the idea that there are two types of collectors when it comes to video games. There are those that want to just collect as many things as they can just to have it and just to show it off. And there are those that want to collect the things that they want to play. And I'll be honest, I started out as the first. I was like, man, this is a popular game. I don't like it, but everyone has it. I got to get it. But now I'm more a sense of I'm looking for things that I actually want to play or that I remember from childhood. So do you have an opinion on it? Do you think that's kind of true or?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm against either of those things because I collected in a way like I was buying everything up. But I had a goal in mind, so it kind of makes sense. But I get people collecting like everything because that's a preservation thing, and most of the people who have these massive collections are big advocates of physical media and actual gamers. They're not just buying it up to resell most of the time. But then I get the other side too, where it's just like, why would you be buying all this random stuff if you don't actually want to play it? So I get it. I get both sides of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned the stuff that you're not selling, that you keep at home, but let's say someone came to you and said, Chris, I have to take everything you own video game wise except one. What would you keep?
I would keep my Donkey Kong Country for Super Nintendo.
For Super Nintendo. Is there a reason? Just a lot of good memories with that?
Yeah, it's like kind of both. It was one of my first games that I owned.
Gotcha.
What they did graphically with that game for the time was like absolutely insane, mind-blowing.
Right.
Impossible what they did with the hardware that they were using. It was insane. The backstory of that game is just really cool and how they were able to do what they did with it. Also, it being one of my first games and the Super Nintendo being my first console. And it standing the test of time as far as gameplay goes. I can play it now and it's still amazing.
It is, yeah. It's definitely one of those games you can pick up after so many years and still have a lot of fun with, for sure.
Yeah.
So is that, would you say, if I asked you your favorite game of all time, would you say Donkey Kong?
Yeah. 100%.
100%? Okay. And then favorite console of all time, would you say Super Nintendo?
If nostalgia was talking, I would say Super Nintendo for sure. I really, really like current gen stuff too, though.
Okay. What's your favorite current gen console, if you had to choose one?
As far as there's so many different like things that there's so many different, how can I word this? I could say so many different answers for so many different things, right? So if it's couch co-op, Switch is by far the best.
For sure.
If it's first party games, I mean, Switch is pretty good too. But I love the trophy system with PlayStation. I really like going for platinum trophies and making the most out of a game, like doing every possible thing you can do in a game, and then getting a platinum trophy to signify that you've done everything that you can in a game. I would consider myself a trophy hunter, so I like my PS5, and I like how it's backwards compatible with PS4.
But no love for the Xbox? I mean, they have achievements. No. How come? Why not?
I don't know. That company is like, it's a
Microsoft?
kind of a nightmare. I mean, for Microsoft itself isn't, but I would say what they've done with the Xbox is kind of blown up in their face a little bit.
I can remember waiting in line for the original Xbox when it came out at midnight when I had to go to school the next day, and that's a big memory that I have. And I've always been a fan of Xbox. I owned a PS1 and a PS2, and after that, never again a Sony console. Just, I think it was mostly because where I was at in my life, I had to pick one. I couldn't have both because of cost and things like that. So I said, I'm going to stick with Xbox. And I really like the multiplayer atmosphere that Xbox provided with Xbox Live. And multiplayer has always been important to me. So
yeah, I can agree with that for sure. Original Xbox and Xbox 360, amazing. So good. But then from Xbox One on, I don't know what they're doing.
It's just like a computer. You're just buying a computer really to hook up to your television, I feel like,
Yeah, they have not a lot of really captivating first party titles. So what would be the reason of buying a Xbox over a PlayStation in this generation? There's not many games that are only available for Xbox One or Series X. But there's a lot of games that are only available for PS5. Right? It's the first party titles are really good. And then also from a physical media standpoint, Microsoft has just gone so hard into the Game Pass and the digital that even in the store, I don't sell anything Xbox, like not much Xbox One, literally no Xbox Series X stuff. I don't even order it in when I'm ordering new games anymore because nobody buys it. Everyone's on Game Pass. And all of the big titles are released for free on Game Pass on the date of release.
Yeah.
So I think that
That's fair.
the non-physical, because I'm a physical media advocate myself, obviously.
100%. Yeah.
So it's like I don't like what they're doing with the no physical and trying to get everyone to go digital.
I agree. I think physical media is definitely, there's something about holding a game in your hand, being able to touch it and see it. Someone mentioned to me, well, why don't you just get an emulator and play? And I said, it's just not the same, to be able to touch and see that game is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about game grading. Another question I have for you is, what about reproduction cartridges or even boxes? Or let's say you have a PS2 game that's, just the disc, and you have a box that is not the original box for that PS2 game, but you put it in there. Should it have the same value as the original, box and cover art and everything?
I don't think it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same value. Like we can see that with online sales and stuff, and I don't think it should either. But I'm not against people printing their own cover art because it's a affordable way to collect for disc-based games. If you want Def Jam Fight for New York, let's say, you get a complete in-box copy, it's $270, or you can get a loose disc copy for, I don't know, $120 or something. And yeah, you print your own label and it looks nice on the shelf and it still is the original game. It's just a more affordable way to collect, I think.
So if you were to sell that game, in a couple years, you didn't want it anymore, you should not sell it at the complete in box price?
No, definitely not. Yeah. Okay. And I think if you're printing your own cover art, you should be putting, in white text or something, reproduction label. And most of the time, you can tell if it's been printed from a home printer. But if you're getting them printed at like a Staples or something, they can be pretty convincing. They can look pretty close to the original.
Okay. No, that's that makes sense. I think that as long as it's the same, so PS2 has different kinds of cases where they have the memory card in, they don't.
Yep.
As long as people are straightforward and like, especially sellers like yourself. I've been to some places where they don't label their reproduction games, but many places do, which is very nice because me as a new enthusiast in this hobby, I don't really know how to find games that are reproductions. Do you have any tips and tricks for reproduction carts?
For Pokemon, there's some pretty easy giveaways. Do I have any here right now? Hold on a second. Can I step up for a sec?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll just do a little dance or something while we wait for Chris is going to find a reproduction cart to kind of explain to everyone watching how to be on the lookout for these reproduction carts. And this is me stalling for time, talking to myself while I wait for him to return. So yeah, any minute now. He'll come back. There he is. Perfect. Don't worry, I didn't have to ramble too long.
Sweet. I don't know if the camera is going to pick this up, but okay. I'll show you this Pokemon Sapphire. There's a couple things you can look for Pokemon games in particular, because those seem to be the ones that are most replicated illegally. I guess you can kind of... Oh yeah, this is perfect. So if you see at the left-hand side, there's a little number imprint right beside the N.
Okay.
Do you see it?
I am having a little... Oh, that side. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
So if it's a true label, it'll have a number imprint. That's like the first thing you can look for. And that'll be on any Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance game.
I believe that's true on like N64 games, right? On the back.
Yeah, on the back. Sorry. On the back of Super Nintendo, N64, and NES as well. Yeah. Anything Nintendo... Yeah, we'll have a number stamp. So that is the first thing you can look for on the label. Then, if you look under, you won't be able to see it here because you can't. Really, but at the back behind the pins, it'll say Nintendo right there. Although some reproductions are starting to do that as well. So that's like the second thing you can look for. And then the third thing is, if you see right here, there's a little like rectangle on the board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the last thing you can look for on Game Boy Advance games. Real ones will have that little square. And then if you really want to get technical, you can open up the cartridge and you can look at boards online and just compare and make sure that it looks the same. But the three things that you can look for without having to open it up are those three things. It's the number imprint, the square on the back, and then the Nintendo behind the pins.
What about sealed games? So the one thing I know about sealed games is you look for that H seam, like on a Nintendo game on the back or on a Nintendo 64. Any other tips for things like that?
There's some actually that don't have it, but one other thing you can check for is, I think they're called air holes, but there's tiny pinprick holes that should be, if you look at it on an angle, you'll be able to see them. They'll all have those tiny little holes and they're uniform across the whole thing.
I have seen a couple of those as well.
But there is some that don't have H seams, actually.
Okay. And then, like PlayStation 2 games, for instance, I know they look for the Y folds on the corners where the seal is. So, yeah. It's definitely something I think a lot of people struggle with. And it's, I won't say hard, but you just have to be careful because sometimes there are dealers who will try to, especially on eBay, and I buy a lot of things off eBay, and it's very difficult to, especially over eBay, determine if something is real or not.
Right.
I've had someone, I'll usually ask someone to send me a picture of the board if they're on eBay, and I had someone once say no, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to buy it then.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. How do you determine the prices for your games? So, if what you're going to sell, something comes in, you look at it, is there something you look up online to see the market value or what?
Yeah. So there's a website that our system is connected to. I'm sure you've heard of it. Everybody has. Price charting.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So what we do is, depending on condition, we'll go up to as high as 20% above price charting. If it's super minty. So here's our pricing scheme. I'll basically tell you. I've actually never told anybody this.
Well, this is like the secret recipe of Kentucky Fried Chicken right now, everyone.
All of our top shelf stuff in the store, which is the stuff that we don't list on eBay, If it's over $100, we mark it at 10% above price charting. Anything below that's listed online and it's below $100, we'll do between 10 to 20% above price charting, unless the condition's bad. If it's bad condition, we'll pretty much mark it right at price charting.
That's great. I mean, there's a lot of places I've been to which have no rhyme or reason to their prices.
Yeah.
I went to one place where there were no prices on anything, and you asked a guy how much is this, and he like looked in the air and he was like, I don't know, $100. so definitely there was also a place actually in Toronto that had
you pronounced it right.
I did that intentionally that time. So there was a guy in there who his store, I forget which store it was. You'll probably know if I say it, but he prices things off price charting. You say, how much is this? He goes in his computer, he looks at price charting, he goes, price charting has it for $103, so it's $103.
Yeah.
So definitely many different ways for things to be priced out.
Yeah, we go a little bit higher. We pay a little bit more for trade-ins. So then we account for that by just pricing a little bit higher than.
Is that how you also do so how do you do your trade-in then? So you look at price charting and you give a certain percentage?
Yeah. So we'll go up, if it's trade credit, like store credit, we'll go up to like, if it's something I really, really want, I'll go as high as like 70% of price charting for store credit. If it's something I really, really want, and it's cash, I would go as high as like, I would have to really want something to pay like 60% for cash.
Gotcha.
If it's stuff we don't really want, it's like 30%.
Gotcha.
For cash. And then store credit will be, if we don't really want it, like, 40 to 45%.
So is that like if you get a big box of stuff that someone brings in, like hundreds of games, you go through each one and you calculate, 30%, or do you kind of just...
No.
Okay.
No. I basically put it in 3 piles. So there'll be the stuff that is good that I want. There'll be the stuff that's okay, and then there'll be the stuff that I don't want at all. So the stuff that's good will be quoted at like the highest percentage.
Gotcha.
The stuff that is like okay will be like lower percentage, and then the stuff that I don't want, it will be like nothing. So it'll be like a fraction.
Gotcha.
I'll pay for the cases, for example.
Yeah.
Like
Gotcha.
25 cents a case, and then if they want to take it back, that's fine, because I don't really have any use for it anyways. It would be stuff that I have like 20 copies of, right?
Is there something on your list that you're still looking for that maybe you haven't found, or you really want to find this item either for your personal collection or to put in the store? And there may not be.
I mean, there was something, but I actually found it 2 days ago or a couple days ago.
What was that?
It was a Virtual Boy.
I saw it. Yeah, I did see that you had that. Are you selling that or keeping it for yourself?
I'm selling it, but it needs some work. There's something like the left eye is kind of doing some weird stuff, so my repair guy's got to take a look at it. I would sell it as is right now, but I'm waiting for him to repair it. It's on display in the store, so if somebody wants it with the weird eye, I would sell it, as is. It still is playable. Yeah. You can, like, the games read, the sound is like crystal clear. The right eye is really, really good, and the left eye is just kind of like jittery and doing some like weird stuff.
I've actually never played a Virtual Boy, but I've always wanted to.
It's kind of weird. I wouldn't say it's that exciting. I'd never played it up until I picked it up there a couple days ago.
What game? What were you playing on it?
Mario Tennis.
Okay, that's like one of the only games I know for Virtual Boy. I think didn't it come in a bundle?
Like in North America, it was packed in with Mario Tennis. In Japan, they had a standalone release. So what's kind of cool about Mario Tennis, the Japanese version is it comes with a box, whereas the North American version, there's no box. You can't get it in a box because it was
interesting
packed in.
So, Chris, you have so much knowledge when it comes to some of this stuff in video games. Is this stuff that you just picked up on your own, or did you learn these things from other people, or how did you get to the level of video game knowledge that you're at today?
Probably like A, B, and C, everything you just said. Doing it for so long. I've been collecting since I was, like I said, 11 or 12 years old. Actively collecting that would make it 20 years, over 20 years now. Watching a ton of YouTube. When I'm bored, I always have YouTube on the background. Learn stuff from watching people on YouTube. Learn stuff from talking to other collectors, talking to other sellers. Yeah, pretty much everything that you just said kind of all meshed into where I've learned everything.
Yeah, because I remember when I was in your store, you were I felt like I was in a museum. You were taking me around. You're like, "Hey, look at this. This is a cool thing." And then you went on for like 20 minutes about it, and I was like, "Jesus, like that's insane." And you showed me what was the like a VC. It looked like a VCR, but is
Yeah,
it what?
the Nuon.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about that again.
Yeah, so the Nuon was a very obscure console. It was the company didn't want to make their own video game consoles, so they partnered with DVD companies and they implemented their console into DVD players. But they have standalone games specifically for the Nuon. But the rare thing about the Nuon is the controller is really hard to find. The unit itself is also pretty hard to find, but the controller is really hard to find, and the games are almost next to impossible to find. And then that's the only true way to play the game Tempest 3000. It wasn't released on any other platform. It was only released on the Nuon. So for any diehard Tempest fan, that's a holy grail piece, having the console, the controller, and a copy of Tempest 3000.
And do you have all three of those? You have the Tempest 3000 and the
I don't
controller?
have the game. I have the console, the controller, and then I have another like crappy Nuon game just to include in to the bundle if somebody buys it, so they have something to play.
What is some other cool, rare stuff that you have in your shop that most people might not know about?
I just put out something called a Dandy Boy. Have you heard of it?
I've seen it. Yeah, yeah. I saw the videos. Yeah,
it's the math. You put your original Game Boy in it, and it's
basically turns your Game Boy into a transformer or something.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it has a really like huge speaker. Oh, well, not huge, but way louder speakers with. It almost feels like a subwoofer like built into it, and then it's got the clip over that magnifies the screen, and then it's got the like raised joystick on the right. Yeah, it's so cool. It takes those like massive batteries though, the big circular ones.
I had seen something similar to that in the past, but not that specific to what you put out. So is that for sale, or is that kind of just
that's for sale?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I have it right under the Virtual Boy in the display cabinet right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's where your Clay Fighters was when I was there. So is that no longer in that cabinet then?
So the Clay Fighter is at the top with a couple other like Holy Grail games.
Okay.
Pokemon Emerald in the box, James Buster, Douglas Boxing. I think there's something else up there. Then the Virtual Boy's there, and then underneath is the Dandy Boy, and then underneath that is our loose amiibos.
Okay. What would you say is like in the store, like your most prized possession, like the most like thing you're happy to show off and be like, hey, look, this is so cool. Like, is it what is it called again? The Nuon? Nuon, yeah. Is that it? Is it the Nuon or is it something else?
No, it's something else for sure. I do like talking about the Nuon because it's super rare, but it's the McDonald's kiosk. It has to be.
How did you get the McDonald's kiosk?
I bought it from a McDonald's collector.
Okay.
Whatever that means, because I don't know. It was kind of sketchy, to be honest.
So this is like, is it like an N64 kiosk or what?
Yeah. So when it was in McDonald's, it was always running Mario Kart, but we have an EverDrive in there, so we rotate the games, and it works with all racing games because it's a wheel and as long as it has the button mapping correct for the wheel and the gas and brake, it'll work on it.
Okay. Another thing you showed to me were some, I think you called them unlicensed Nintendo games. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, again, another thing I have never heard of. So correct me if I'm wrong. You know much more than I do, but apparently there was these games that were not made by Nintendo, made by other companies, and because of that, their cartridges look slightly different because they weren't allowed to use the same cartridge design. Is that?
Yep, that's right. Basically, the two main ones would be Tengen. Tengen is the most popular one. Most people have seen those black cartridges with the cardboard sleeves. And then the other one that's kind of big is also Color Dreams. So they found a way to... There's a lockout chip in the NES, and they found a way to go around the lockout chip and illegally make games that could be played on the NES.
And those are a little more rare than the normal NES games usually, right? Or not always?
I would say so. I wouldn't say it's sought after, but to find... the Tengen ones complete in box aren't too rare, but some of the Color Dream ones are pretty damn rare in the box. It's like pretty crazy.
I think I have. Is it RBI Baseball is made by Tengen?
Yep.
I'm trying to look.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Tetris. There's a version of Tetris made by Tengen that's
really
insanely rare. I had a complete in box copy when we opened. It's long gone now, but there was kind of a crazy backstory about that. Did you watch the movie at all?
No.
Tetris.
No.
There's a movie about.
The documentary, right?
It's not a documentary.
Or sorry, sorry.
It
It's like
actually is a movie.
it's basically how they developed
Yeah.
Tetris. It is a movie. You're right. Yeah, I did see some of it. Yeah.
So, kind of the story is that the guy who created Tetris or whoever was the rights owner sold the
Right.
rights to a bunch of different people. So, all these different people thought that they were the rights owner. So, Tenjin, I guess, was one of the companies that was the rights
Okay.
owner. And then they created the game illegally for the NES. And then there was a big shitstorm. Who am I allowed to swear?
No, but you already did, so it's fine. This episode will just be rated mature.
Yeah, sorry. It was like a gong show of when everybody found out that there was all these different people who thought they owned the rights, and then all of the copies got ripped from the shelves. So it's super hard to find the Tenjin version because the license actually ended up then going to Nintendo, and then Nintendo put out a legit copy of Tetris instead of the version made by Tenjin. So the Tenjin version is crazy rare.
What country is Tenjin from? Do you know?
It's from Russia. Or no,
Russia.
sorry, Tetris is from Russia. I don't know where Tenjin is from. I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure.
Got you. What other cool stuff is in your shop? I just, I love hearing these stories, and I'm sure people on the, watching enjoy hearing it as well. Any other obscure things that you've picked up?
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. There's something I have up on the shelf here. It's called the Aura Interactor. You ever heard of it?
No, that sounds like something from the year 2020, like million years in the future.
Yeah,
It
and
doesn't
that's what they were going for. So
Yeah.
it's like it's a vest you put on, so you have a chest plate and a plate on your back, and there's a subwoofer.
I do
on
know.
both.
I do know this. Yep, I've seen it.
Yeah, and then you connect it to the audio jacks of your like NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis. And if you're
Yep.
playing fighting games, it feels like you're getting punched in the stomach and punched in the back because of the subwoofer.
So then it was like VR before we actually had VR. They were trying
Exactly.
to do the tactile sensation of VR.
Yeah, that's a cool piece. The Sega Pico is a cool piece, which is you can't see it, but
What's the Sega Pico?
that was you know what a VTech is? VTech
Yes,
it's the
that's
kids
Those little kid things, right?
mini
Yeah,
iPads
yeah.
with interchangeable
Uh-huh.
games. So that pretty much paved the way for VTech. It was the first internationally commercially released educational video game system, and it was made by Sega.
Wow.
So the cartridges were also part book. So you put the cartridge in and then you open it like a book, and it has a touch screen with a stylus. So you like touch the book, and there's also a gamepad on the bottom. So it's like a laptop, right? So it opens up like that. There's the book part is on here with the cartridge, and then there's a touchpad on the bottom. And then you connect to your TV.
What year did that come out? Do you know? Approximately.
I think it was 93 because it used the same internals as the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
It was also the worst selling Sega console of all time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could sit here and talk all day about some of this stuff. Like I said, you just have a lot of knowledge, and it's very, fun to learn about some of these things that I've never even heard of. And I'm sure many people listening also have never heard of. Hopefully. We'll see. Do you have any advice for people who might want to start collecting or something like that, getting into this hobby and just starting? Do's and don'ts?
Yeah, I would say one thing is don't put all your money into
Into one game?
but
Just in general, like into the hobby. Yeah, okay.
because it can consume you if you have that type of personality, and it's expensive if you're
I
collecting.
think if
for
my wife
certain
was watching
consoles.
right now, she would agree with you 100%. So
I guess, yeah, doing it on a budget that works for you would probably be my biggest advice. And if that's, saying I'm only going to collect for set console, or finding ways that you can collect cheaper, whether that be collecting for a console that isn't very expensive. And that would be like Master System is so cheap, or original Xbox is pretty cheap right now. Even 360 and PS3 are pretty good, although they're starting to climb up. Or collecting, like I said earlier, disc-only games and then printing off your own covers, working within your budget and, not spending too much money on it, I guess.
yeah, I would add to only just buy what you want to buy. Like I think I mentioned it earlier. Don't buy something because someone else likes it or it's popular. buy things that you want to buy. Otherwise, something's just going to sit on your shelf for 20 or 30 years and just collect dust. So I think that's pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
You have Instagram, obviously. Any other socials that you have that people can follow? You have an eBay store, correct?
Yeah, but it's not affiliated with the store.
Oh, okay.
We have we have an online website where
Is that
where
just
we Yep, moonshinegaming.ca. All of our most of our products.
That means Canada, everyone. CA.
Yeah, but we ship worldwide, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
So yeah, moonshinegaming.ca is the store, and then our social media, Instagram is Moonshine Gaming. That's where we're most active, is on Instagram.
Instagram, okay.
Yeah, and then YouTube as well, Moonshine Gaming. We're on Facebook and TikTok. TikTok, I don't post at all. Facebook, all my stuff from Instagram gets reposted on Facebook.
I don't know what things are like in Canada, but we might not have TikTok in 6 months or so here in the U.S., so they're talking about banning it.
Well, they've been saying in Canada, because I don't know if you know much about the creator side of things on TikTok, is creators get paid out in the States, but they don't in Canada.
Wow.
So that was part of the reason why I stopped posting. Although Instagram, you don't get paid either. They've been dangling that carrot, being like, "Oh, you're gonna get paid soon, Canada. Don't worry." And they just have never brought it over here.
All I know about that is that I've been wanting to do like lives where I stream games, kind of like on Twitch, and I don't have enough followers because you have to have, I think, so many followers before they'll let you do that. So I said, whatever, forget it.
I think it's 100 on Twitch.
I think it's 100, and that sounds sad that I don't have 100 followers, but that's what it is. So, because I don't actually post any videos or reels or whatever on on TikTok, so just never really felt like doing that. So, no, I definitely appreciate you joining us today. It's definitely been a pleasure. So much knowledge and so much cool stuff. I hope some people learned some things today. I definitely hope people will visit your shop, even if that means they're flying from California to come there. It's definitely worth a visit. Where's the furthest person you've ever had come to your shop? Do you typically, like, I assume you're a pretty friendly guy, so you probably talk to most people. So
yeah, I try, and everybody who comes in, I try and talk to, and if they want to talk. Some people don't.
Anyone from across the pond, as they say? Yeah.
I had the most recent one was there was a guy from Australia who was in here.
Very cool.
And that would probably be the furthest away that someone could be, I think.
Yeah, I think
far.
That is the very, geographically speaking.
Yeah. He was in, what was he? He was here for work or something. And he popped in. We chatted for 45 minutes, which I'm just going to say is my favorite part about doing what I do, is getting to meet people, like meeting you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no,
I just love meeting new people. It's so fun.
Oh yeah, same. That's essentially why I started this podcast. Is I'd like to meet new people and allow other people to meet new people as well. So I have you on the show. Someone might be watching it and be like, "Man, I never thought of going to Toronto before." And they might say, "Hey, I'm going to go check out this store. If I'm in town, I can check it out." And you can meet somebody new. So that's kind of the goal here. So again, I appreciate you being on the show. It's great to have you here. Make sure, everyone, you follow Moonshine Gaming on Instagram at Moonshine Gaming. Make sure you take a trip to Canada and visit his store and his website. I personally have never been to his website. I didn't know he had one, but I will go to it now. But make sure you visit that as well. So. Sweet. Everybody, thanks for joining in. We'll have a new episode once a week. And like and follow if you enjoy the content, and we'll keep making more content for you. All right. Bye, everyone.